Welcome back to the show. I'm Sarah Bernard, and I'm here with Gwen Moore, and we've been talking about 1968 exhibit that just started at the Missouri History Museum and runs until January 5th. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah, that's right.
Okay, so tell us about this exhibit. We've been talking the last segment all about the 1960s.
There is so much in this exhibit, and you just have to come and see it. I don't think I could do it justice just talking about it. But it's organized by month, because each month something significant happened.
Oh, interesting.
So it goes from January with the Tet Offensive, when of course the South Vietnamese launched that offensive that really sort of changed the course of the war. It was the first time that the war was brought into the homes of the American people because it was on television.
Yeah,
we had never seen anything like that.
And we're looking at photos right now, Gwen. Is this from the January?
This is from January.
Okay.
And one of the things that's really impressive about this first, when you walk into the January part of the exhibit, there's a helicopter that was actually flown in Vietnam. The Minnesota History Center bought this helicopter in parts, and then they brought veterans in to reassemble it.
Oh, interesting.
And when we brought it here, of course it was brought in parts, we did the same thing. We brought veterans in to help us reassemble that helicopter. And it gives kind of an emotional attachment to it, so it just isn't a cold artifact, but something that we really have feeling for, because those veterans who actually were in Vietnam put that together.
Yeah.
So
the exhibit starts off
very big, with this very big artifact,
this
an actual helicopter.
And then the visuals having to do with the war.
And I can't tell you everything because
we need to come and see it, but give us some, tease us a little bit.
Well, you know, two of the more traumatic things that happened, of course, was the assassination of Martin Luther King in April. And we have a video of Martin Luther King's last speech, which is quite moving. We have the communion plate from his funeral. And then in June, there was the Robert Kennedy assassination. So we had those two very traumatic events. And so I always tell people there's a lot of seriousness there in the exhibit, but there's some silliness too.
There's the culture, the cultural phenomenon that was going on. With the clothing,
the clothing, the music. One of the things that's people are really interested in is the 1968 music quiz. It's a lot of fun. And that's the other thing about this exhibit. There's a lot of interactives. So I say there's things that you can't touch. Usually when you go to an exhibit, don't touch anything.
Exactly.
You just watch. But there are things that you can actually touch. Not everything. Some things you can't touch. The other thing I like about this exhibit is that they actually have what they said are lounges, decorated with 1960s furniture, where you can actually sit down and experience what it was like to be in 1968. So you can sit down on the couch and see Walter Cronkite talking about his doubts about the Vietnam War.
Oh, wow. So on a 1960s era television.
Exactly. 1960s era television, which should be very interesting for
Well, it'll take some people back. And for young people who weren't alive or were very young, perhaps in that time period, it'll let them experience something that their parents lived through. Yeah,
like we have Mr. Rogers' sweater.
Oh, you're kidding.
And his tennis shoes, his sneakers.
The blue sweater. Is it blue?
This one is green.
Green.
And his tennis shoes are green.
It always was green.
We have Jimi Hendrix boots and a velvet jacket that he wore. So there's a lot of fun things and a lot of serious things too.
We've got some jeans on.
That's an interesting story behind those jeans, because the woman that had those jeans kept patching them. They were just regular blue jeans, and she kept patching them and patching them and patching them until they ended up looking like that.
Oh yeah, very typical of
very
that
typical
era.
of the hippie era. You know, the love beads and the tie-dyed and
the love beads. I have love beads.
Love beads.
I remember they're very small. So we've got, and this is an important picture right here.
Oh yeah, now it ends in December with the launch of the Apollo 8.
Okay.
And we actually have
the 1968
exhibit.
The exhibit goes till January, but
it goes
but the year ended in
the year
December.
ended, and so it's kind of interesting because they call this the beginning. Because this was the Apollo 8, which orbited the moon, and I didn't realize this at the time, but that was very, very risky.
Very risky.
Very risky because
very
significant. Because if anything had happened, they would have been in permanent orbit, and they wouldn't have been coming back.
Yeah, right.
So this was a time when people were very, very hopeful. This also was, like we say, in Vietnam, it brought the war into the living room.
Yeah.
And this was also a great use of television because it brought this into people's living rooms. So you see, there were 56 million televisions in the United States at that time. So a lot of people were seeing these things.
Yeah.
So it was very exciting.
And experienced them right as it was happening.
Right.
So.
And they took this like you saw before, they took a picture of the Earth. It was the first time people have seen the Earth from that particular viewpoint. It was very exciting for people.
So 1968, what a very, very important year.
A very important year.
And we have until the end of this year, beginning of January, to experience it in full color and in person at the Missouri History Museum. So Tuesdays, I believe, is that the free day?
Yeah, it's free on Tuesdays.
Free on Tuesdays.
And let me see, I think this is an exhibit for everybody. It has very broad appeal. I can't imagine anybody coming there not finding something that interests them.
Yeah, take the family. It sounds like a great educational exhibit.
It is.
And something very, very interesting. All the details are here on the screen, but also you can go to mohistory.org for hours and prices. We know that it's free to St. Louis Metro residents on Tuesdays. So very a good day to visit, but any day it's open. So thank you, Gwen, so much.
It is my pleasure.
For coming and in educating me a little bit more about the 1968 year, a very important year. Next up, we'll hear about the Petco 5K9 Walk Run event, so stay with us.